Good afternoon, family. Thanks for checking out today's video. If you are new here, my name is Jonathan, and I created this channel as a way to record my progress as I work towards my goal of losing 300 pounds in 3 years. If you would like to join the family, hit that subscribe button down below. Also, click on the bell icon so you'll get alerted when I go live or post new videos. If you would like to participate on the discussion, you can join me most weekdays when I go live at 4 p.m. Central Time on YouTube, or outside of my live streams, you could reach out to me through the Discord I created. There is a link for that down in the description below. If you're interested in getting some ideas of some of the foods that our family enjoys on our whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free diet, we created a Pinterest board as well. And that Pinterest board has links and different ways to see a lot of the recipes that we enjoy. There's a link for that down below too. Today is day 680 of my 3-year challenge to lose 300 pounds. I've used a combination of extended water fasting and a whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free diet to lose over 200 pounds. I'm on day 13 of my diet reset. I had a rocky past year essentially, so I have recommitted to sticking to the whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free diet. It has been going wonderfully, and I have been able to drop some pounds. I'm looking forward to weigh in Wednesday tomorrow. A couple people checking in. Christy M saying hello all, and Pretty Girl's mom says it's Tofu Tuesday once again. Get your tofu out and throw your best marinade on it. So let's switch over to the big screen here. I hope everybody had a wonderful evening last night. We had a little bit of stuff, but nothing big last night. Some family things or activities for our kids. I'm trying to think of if I was busy doing anything else. I can't think of anything else I was busy doing last night, but we will go ahead and go over the food that I took photos of since yesterday. So that was yesterday's breakfast. So last night's dinner, I got a couple shots of it here. Let me see if this is working. There we go. Last night's dinner. I can't even give you any idea what the name of it was. I don't know if Carrie is watching or not. It was something. It's a soup. Red lentils. It's a soup with red lentils in it. I can't remember the name. She got it out of a cookbook. I will bug her. There's our little spatula with a funny little guy on it there. But that was it in the pan. That's actually it in a bowl. This was a great soup. I will definitely recommend Carrie shares it or lets us know where the recipe came from. But like I said, there's red lentils in there. There's spinach. There's onions. There's carrots. There's mushrooms. And then some seasoning in there. There was lemon. There was maybe a little bit of apple cider vinegar in it. Lots of different things going on with it, but very enjoyable soup. And I would highly recommend it. I wish I had a better idea of what it was called. Let me check this out. All right. So, and then let me see, moving on from the soup that we had last night, or I guess I have more photos of it because it was so good. I took so many photos of it. and everybody's saying it looks delicious. It was. The only downside to the recipe that Carrie used, they did not give a lot of time in the recipe for cooking of the carrots or the mushrooms. The mushrooms were not a big deal, but it was the carrots that took much longer to cook and soften than the recipe kind of gave or allowed time for. Carrie had said that if in the future when she does make this recipe, that she thinks that it would be better to take frozen carrots and defrost them and then put them in there so that they're already soft. Or maybe you could steam them or soften them before you put them in the soup. It would just kind of give a little bit better consistency to the texture of the soup. With the carrots in there not cooked all the way through, it was a little bit crunchy and threw off the texture overall. But flavor, that was a great soup last night, and I definitely recommend it. Then today we just had oatmeal for breakfast in my Hello Kitty bowl here. This is our sweet oatmeal. This is bananas and apples, and then we use an apple juice to as the base, or the liquid, or part of the liquid for the base. And in the past, when we were first doing this diet, this would be the oatmeal that we had, but then we would usually put peanut butter in with the oatmeal. I've been avoiding putting the peanut butter in the oatmeal. I didn't take a picture of it, but I have not completely avoided peanut butter. Last night, I did take a couple dates and put some peanut butter on the dates and had them as a snack. So, but it was the Crazy Richard's peanut butter that we have. That's just peanuts with no salt or oil in it. And then today for lunch, I had a little bit of a 50-50 plate there. We got 50% potatoes, 50% broccoli. This has become a staple in my diet over the last couple weeks, and I have been enjoying it. Really just as is, no flavor added, no seasonings, no salt, nothing, just broccoli and potatoes mashed together. And that was my lunch for today. Yeah, Carrie says here, it's just so easy to cook the potatoes and the broccoli at work. We can just throw the potatoes in an Instapot, throw the broccoli in the microwave, and get it done. Carrie, now that you're here, everybody, we've been talking about the dinner last night, and I couldn't remember the name of it for the life of me. So if you could give us the name of last night's dinner and where you got the recipe. Was it out of the new cookbook? It was, Carrie picked up a new cookbook that is Plant-Powered Women. It was the Jane Esselstyn book. Plant-Based Warriors, Women, or something. I'm not sure. She got a new cookbook, so it might have been out of that cookbook, but maybe she'll let us know where dinner came from last night. But it was definitely a hit, and I would highly recommend dinner last night. So Carrie says it was called the Carrot, Mushroom, and Red Lentil Soup from Be a Plant-Based Woman Warrior Cookbook. And the soup was not cooked in the Instapot. The soup was done on the stove top. If that's what you're asking about, the potatoes are done in the Instapot. The oatmeal is also done in the Instapot. So that was the food since yesterday. I feel great today. It's crazy how much that 10 to 12 pounds that I've lost here since starting this reset, how much of a difference it makes, how good I feel, how my joints seem to feel like um, there's less inflammation in them. My ankle is definitely um, the swelling has gone down a lot in my ankle. Um, Carrie said a couple. What just happened? It said no data. Now it says excellent. Great. Okay. Um, the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I really like the book. I mean, it's there's a lot of information that he goes over that I like. Ron here says that you've had a few recipes from the plant-based woman warrior cookbook, and most have been really good. Ann's flax biscuits were not as good as hoped, but they were passable. That's great to hear. I'm glad that you're trying some recipes from the cookbook. I know Carrie was really excited to be able to pick up a copy of it. She actually ordered 2 copies of it, one for herself and another as a gift, or I'm not sure if the other person knows they're getting it. Carrie says that our kids really like the teriyaki sauce from the plant-based woman warrior cookbook. Yeah, our daughter that does not like most veggies ate stir-fried broccoli with that and enjoyed it. So yeah, it's great having these cookbooks and finding these great recipes that make wonderful, meals that we are enjoying. um, it's very it's interesting now. I'd have to go back and look and see what we were eating for meals when I first started this. I know that our dinners were pretty varied, but we were kind of we didn't have a lot of recipes like we do now. So we would have maybe the Mega Veggie chili a little bit more often, or I guess we used to have chickpea tikka masala a lot when we first started too. And now we have a lot more options because we've been experimenting with these cookbooks and we're finding a lot of great recipes. So it would be interesting to see how much more variety I'm having now versus when we started, because I was so scared that I would screw up and eat something that was off plan. And so I ended up kind of relying on a few staple items or meals. But overall, with this diet reset, I do have to say it's extremely satisfying, or it's much easier because I'm not going into it so blindly. When I switched to this diet in December of 2020, it was easy to switch to the diet because I had fasted prior to the diet. But just my mindset going in, I had no idea what kind of foods I would even eat. And, when I first started, I would stare at the pantry and just have no idea what to do with any of the ingredients that we had. And I would just resort to grabbing, a can of corn or eating Ezekiel bread and peanut butter just because it's what I knew how to make and I knew would be okay to eat. And now, being that I stuck to the diet real heavy for the first 11 months. I've been on diet most of the time the past 11 months, but I've allowed the temptations of processed foods to come into my diet, and going back and getting rid of those processed foods, I'm finding it to be fairly easy to get back into the swing. There is a bit of I miss some of those flavors, or I realize that my diet doesn't have all of the flavors that are out there, I guess. But like I said, we're learning new things. So that soup we had last night is got flavors in it that we weren't eating the first 11 months of this, or the polenta with the white beans. That was a meal that we didn't have for the first year and a half that now is on our diet, or it's acceptable for what our restrictions are with our diet. And it's extremely satisfying, and far more satisfying than a lot of the things that I did eat for the first year that was on this diet. So with the reset, I'm happy that it's been going smooth, and that I have had it seems to be easier than even the last time getting into it with the diet. The other stuff I've been doing, I've been reading. Ron says that you're trying to have at least one new recipe per week. With having so many plant-based cookbooks, part of the reason we got this cookbook, and we've also liked a lot of the recipes that we got from the Plant Powered Families cookbook. There was some recipes from that I think we really enjoyed as well. And it's cool that there are so many books out there. There's it's becoming so much more popular, and there's lots of options. And it's cool seeing what you can make with some of these ingredients, and not using salt and sugar and oil to change the flavors or affect the taste overall. I've continued to read Atomic Habits by James Clear. I do like the book. The layout of the book, I'm enjoying it. It's kind of a methodical kind of, he set out these 4 principles, and he defines these 4 principles, and then he talks about how to change your habits, or make them more attractive or unattractive, or make them easier or more difficult. But everything kind of seems to have a linear progression throughout the book, through his process. And then he breaks down each section. So when he talks about making the habits that you want to form more attractive, he has a whole chapter on that. But then he also has a whole chapter on making those habits that you don't want to do unattractive. Or, and then the following chapter will be about making the habits easy that you want to do, and then the habits you don't want to do, making them more difficult. And at the end of each chapter, he does a chapter summary, goes back and goes over his kind of points from the book, or from the chapter, that previous chapter. He also has some exercises, or some kind of, program 1.1, or I can't remember the word he uses for it, but essentially it's, he has a habit scorecard, and then you use that, and you go to the next process, and then you take that next process and you go to the following one. It, like I said, it's just really well laid out. He does a good job of rehashing the information and reviewing it, and making it easy to understand. The few takeaways, or one of the big takeaways that I thought was interesting, was he talks about how it's not necessarily about how long you do something in order to develop a habit. When people say you have to, it takes 21 days to develop a habit, or it takes a month, or it takes whatever to develop a habit. And it's not so much the time it takes to develop a habit, it's the number of, or how it does, how much time it takes. It's how many times you do that habit. The more times you do it, the more it will become automatic. If it's a habit that you only do, or something that you are doing once a day, time wise, it might take longer to develop that as a habit versus something you're doing 3 or 4 times a day. So the timing of it may lengthen or shorten based on how often you're doing it, but it's mostly the repetition. And a big part about the repetition is about getting better at doing it so it makes it easier. The example he gives in the book is that they had these cats that they put into an experiment where there were 2 rooms. In the one room, there was a bunch of things for the cats to mess with and to pull and to scratch at. But there was one button that if the cats pushed that button, a door would open into another room, and that other room would have a bowl of food in it. And the first time the cats tried to do the experiment, it would take them a long time because they'd be messing with many things in the room, trying to get out of the room. And then finally they would stumble across the button would open the door, they would run out. Then they would bring the cats in and they would do the experiment over and over to see if the cats got faster with the process. And after a few tries, the cats went from the first few tries, it took them over 30 seconds to find the button and leave. The last 3 tries, it was under 6 seconds average time for them to find the button and leave, because they had done it enough times that they had a memory of how to do it, and it was a learned behavior. So it became quicker. And the more times that they would do it, theoretically, it would get quicker. It may not get, there may be a point of diminishing return, because at first once they learned the trick, they figured it out very quickly. After a while, you could only get so fast. And our habits are similar, that when you want to develop the habit, the first time you do it, it may take you longer to do. You may screw it up. You may not do everything perfectly, but you have to do that attempt so that when you go to do it the second time, you're able to do it better, I guess. It's similar to this diet, I guess. When the first time I did the diet, I did it well and I was doing a good job. But now that I've done it and I've been doing it repeatedly day after day, now doing the reset, it seems to be easier because I know the foods to get. We knew what foods to have in the cupboard. A big thing about this diet is I know to eat the volume of food. I felt guilty before when I would eat seconds or thirds, and I would be like, gosh, I just can't believe that, I can't eat this food or I won't lose weight. But that's not the case. Now I know that I can eat as many plain baked potatoes as I want, and I'm not going to run into an issue because I would have to eat a ridiculous amount of potatoes to gain weight. And so my knowledge of the previous experience makes doing it this time easier. And it was really interesting listening to the book because it reminded me a lot of, it brought up a memory I have from when I was in high school. And I used to wrestle in high school, and we would travel all over the country, kind of to wrestle different places. And we would go to a wrestling camp in West Virginia that was it was a style of wrestling developed by some guys out there, that it was a week-long camp that we would go, and we would have like 3 or 4 sessions a day. You'd wake up and you'd wrestle in the morning, and you'd go to breakfast, and you'd wrestle between breakfast and lunch, and then you would eat lunch, and then you'd wrestle between lunch and dinner, and then you'd have dinner, and then you'd have a night session or something. It was a lot of wrestling. It's like a camp. And one of the main guy that started the camp was this older gentleman at this point when I was going to the camp, but he would stand up there and they would talk about doing these wrestling moves, and he would go on and on about how if you want to learn how to do something, you got to do it 1,000 times. You got to do it until it's in the back of your brain stem and it just becomes automatic. And him talking in this chapter about it being about repetition and having that kind of memory of the camp, and that instructor being like, you got to do the move 1,000 times. You got to do this 1,000 times. It's about the number of times you do it. Even if you don't do it perfect, it's about doing it 1,000 times. So you get better every time and it becomes more automatic. And that's a lot about what these atomic habits are. It's about making these habits automatic by making them repetitious, and making them more attractive, making the idea of doing them more attractive, by using habit stacking, where you say, okay, if I do this task I want to do, then I can do this task if I do this task I need to do, then I can do this task I want to do, or just a lot of different little tricks that he gives out in the book. And so I'm liking it so far. I still have a couple hours left in the book. I'm not sure. What do I got? 2 hours, 6 minutes left, it says. So, and I'm getting into the chapter about procrastination, which is probably the thing I need as much help with as anything. So I'm going to check out and see what his 2-minute rule is with procrastination this afternoon on my drive home. Jean says, yes, that is true. Eating this way, you have to eat when hungry. If after a few times you find yourself still hungry, then variety is needed. Your body may be looking for the particular nutrient it craves. Yes, that overall with the plant-based diet, I say eating plants saved my life, and it did. Changing to this diet absolutely changed my life, the course of my life. There's an absolute chance that had I not switched to eating this way, that I would have suffered some sort of major issue from my previous diet. But eating this way is like I said earlier, when we first switched, it's completely different than any way I've ever eaten before and any diet I've ever dieted before. Diets have always been about restriction and about calorie counting and getting your total daily energy expenditure up, working out as hard as you can. And when eating this way, it's great to see awesome results on the scale. Like, I'm going to get on the scale tomorrow and I'm going to see a great number difference between what I was last Wednesday. But there is a little bit of concern that I didn't eat enough, that it's going to catch up at some point. And if it does catch up with this way of eating, it's much slower than it ever was eating keto or eating the other, low carb diet way I used to eat. But overall, it took a while to get over that guilt of eating so much, like I feel like I shouldn't talk about how much I was eating on stream here because I felt like I was overeating, but then at the same time I was still weighing in every week and losing weight. So it's kind of a weird dilemma to have, or it's a weird because it's counter to what I'm used to. There's lots of reasons why it works that way. But I never would have thought of it, had I not been eating this way and seeing how it works. And the thing, when the volume of food you bring in increases, the volume of food that goes out increases too. And when you eat more unprocessed foods, it becomes more difficult for your body to take the calories from that food. So you end up, it works harder to process the food, and you end up with more waste than. Gene says that McDougall would challenge his patients to out-eat him, and they couldn't do it. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, like that's not anything you would ever think that you would hear a doctor, you would hear said, that a doctor would challenge his patients to out-eat the volume that they eat. But it's been great. The only downside is that a few times this past week, I wish Carrie would have made more food for dinner because I would have eaten more of like the polenta stuff or that soup last night. I would have eaten bowls upon bowls of that. And not felt guilty at all, like that's really the best part about it. And I'm hoping that the weigh-in, I think tomorrow is going to be a good weigh-in. It's going to be maybe not as good as the weigh-in was last Wednesday when I, the first week of doing this reset. But for me, I'm not going to really start getting excited until I see the low 290s, the 280s, and then I'll start to be excited. And I know it's going to take a little time to get there because I'll probably lose a few pounds this week, but after this week, it's going to slow back down to the 1-2 pounds a week. I imagine. I mean, it would be great if it doesn't, and I may try to pick up some of the activity. I'm not completely inactive. I move around quite a bit at work, much more than I used to. Like that's something that's different, I suppose. But overall, that's gonna be a difference maker at some point, is when I become more active or I get more active. I don't think I really have anything else today. My stream software is really messed up because one of them says I've been streaming twice as long as the other, so there must have been a major hiccup in the middle of the stream. I'm sorry if that screwed up anybody watching here today. I appreciate all you guys following along, everybody that joins me in the chat here, everybody that's been commenting after the fact, and everybody who's joined the Discord and has been sharing things in the Discord as well. I've really enjoyed all of the interactions that I've had with everybody, and I appreciate the support tremendously. The level of accountability that I wanted to have by creating this channel is definitely one of the aspects, for why I feel like I've succeeded as well. I don't know how else you're able to replicate that accountability, but I needed it, and having you guys here has helped me a ton. So I'm going to be weighing in tomorrow. So it's weigh-in Wednesday tomorrow. I'm looking forward to the weigh-in. I should be live Thursday, Friday as well. Get subscribed to the channel. Click on the bell icon so you get alerted when I go live or post new video. Hit the like button on this video. Give it a thumbs up here so everybody knows how awesome it is to listen to me ramble for 35, 40 minutes. And if you haven't started your diet yet, get started right now. There's no reason to wait. There is nothing coming up that's more important than your health and your overall well-being. Nobody ever gets to their goal, looks back and says, I wish I would have waited. You know, everybody looks back and says, if I'd have known what I know now, I would have started months earlier, years earlier, decades earlier. Nobody regrets getting started. So get started right now and eat a plant-based diet. It's changed my life. So you guys all have a great evening.